They wind you up and then they turn you. And you think that you're totally free. While they rip them apart, no matter where you are, they can turn you on non easily. They program your emotions, rechannel your devotion, and put your motivations on pause. Take away your vision, control your decision. You never know what it should become. They got you in a remote control. Remote control. You don't fool yourself, your mind, your body, and your soul. But somebody else, remote control. They got you moving. They got you moving on remote control. You don't fool yourself, your mind, your body, and your soul. But somebody else, remote control. Remote control means to guide, to rule, to keep in check. From a distance or a hidden place. Please got you moving on remote control.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, thank you for joining us this morning for All Things Human. That's where we are today. Alhamdulillah, we continue on our topic, and that topic is still Satan, the hypocrites, history, and the Word of God. And we're continuing with that. Now, 201, you got one pushed up. I have a tendency to think it might be an accident, but I'm going to click you open and see if you got a comment. 201-491. You got a comment?
Assalamu
alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Who am I speaking with?
Habib Salam from North New Jersey.
Alhamdulillah, how's it going? I sound like you're in a train station or something.
Yeah, it's a lot of noise in the background from my work.
All right. So I just saw one, so I punched you up. You got a comment or no?
No, not yet. I want to hear what you have to say. Then I'll comment later.
Inshallah. All right, so we're moving on. Thank you. Travel safe.
Okay.
All right. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. So let's get right on with it. So we're continuing on the same thing, and we're gonna go ahead and pick up where we left off last week. So let me get myself straight here. So those of you on Blog Talk, certainly you can't see the image if you're on Blog Talk only. But of course, if you can tie into us on Facebook and on YouTube, then you can get that. But we're picking up from when we left off. So to begin with, here's a very important teaching and principle for what we're speaking to. The Imam said, rahimahullah, in March 21, 1982, speaking of Pharaoh and Egypt, he said, the highest knowledge of man in society is the science of his spirituality, which is what the Imams addressed, just the portion that we just listened to. His throne, speaking of Allah's throne, was first upon the waters. He's speaking about this very thing. is the science of his spirituality. And believe me, you're not ruled by guns. You're not subdued because of great physical knowledge. You are subdued because there are people in this world who know more about your spirituality than you do. And they're able to use the tools of science that they have regarding your spirituality to manipulate you and keep you under adverse spirits. Brothers and sisters, it's not a fantasy, it's a reality. You are living in the matrix. The whole idea about the bugs and the creatures and all that, let that go. But you can actually treat them in the way that AI, artificial intelligence, is being used by Google, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, blah blah blah. Those are those bots. It is that thing. Maybe it's not manifest exactly the way that that image in the movie is given, but effectively, functionally, yeah, they do make batteries out of us because they drive the engine of their machine based on how firmly we are connected to their digital networks. It's real, okay? And the sooner we understand that we're living in that, but then and also discipline ourselves in a way to think, act, and feel that's under our conscious control, right? So I gotta discipline myself, right now. But I'll say this one piece and keep going, because 95% of our life is lived unconsciously. That's literally, and also it's one of those. It's a blessing that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has created us in such a way that many of the things that we have to do repeatedly, He doesn't make us. He didn't structure our anatomy, our neuroanatomy, our biology, our brain, and the way that it operates to where we have to learn everything and be conscious of everything at all times. No, once certain repeated things are understood and mastered, etc., they get registered in the autonomic or the automatic aspect of ourselves, the automaticity of who we are. And so then we can go on about doing something else, something different, something new, while the unconscious makeup where that skill is stored, since it's going to be repeated, then it's just automatic. Point is, 95% of our life is lived automatically. But if that 95% has not been embedded in you by what you consciously wanted, what you've consciously chosen to be automatic in your life, right? Then remote control. Somebody else is doing it. Let's move on. So the image of Isis that you have here, we've already covered it. But the main thing we point to is the idea that when you see that hand, is that she doesn't have a right hand and a left hand. She has two right hands. She has two right hands. And that is to say that the science is someone being conscious of your unconscious. For you, it means you need to be more conscious of your own unconscious. But if you're not aware of that science, of that fact regarding your own spirituality and how it must be under your control, then somebody else is going to take it under control, because they know more about your conscience, about your unconscious, your conscious and your unconscious makeup than you do, and therefore that's the that's the key of life, and that's how they control. We brought up this person, Arnon Milken. He's just an example. But a major example. He's a movie producer, but he's also an agent, an open and public agent in the interest of occupied Palestine, otherwise known in the world as Israel. Arms dealer, etc. He said, "Well, look, I'm just getting stuff for my country." So he's unabashedly, unashamedly, etc. But the science and the real power and the real influence that he and others at his level of operation in the world is really through the media, right? He is the movie producer behind such movies as Once Upon a Time in America, Tin Cup, Pretty Woman, Fight Club, the Oliver Stone movie JFK, The Big Short, The Revenant, 12 Years a Slave, Natural Born Killers, L.A. Confidential, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, with that combo of was Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, Heat, Free Willy. Huh? So it's like, so the media machine that the sister and the group Hydra sang about or sing about when we air it, remote controls, like that's where we really do our business. The movie Zardoz, which was a Sean Connery starring flick, it's a parable. It's a story like whatever. You can read any kind of novel. I don't care. Alice in Wonderland or Wizard of Oz, right? Those stories, the Wizard of Oz itself, Zardoz is a combination of the last part of Wizard and Oz. So Zardoz. Uh, and the Wizard of Oz is really about when you say follow the yellow brick road, it's talking about gold, right? And then you had the lion, that's William Jennings Bryan. The scarecrow is the farmer. The Tin Man is the industrialists, like the people on the railroad people. And so it was a parable about what was going on politically and economically around the time that was published. That's what the Wizard of Oz is. Now this Zardoz is one of those whatever post classical kind of movies that's communicating the message of the people who are using their take on it in order to be that Wizard of Oz, in order to save the knowledge and project the knowledge and inform those, and also entertain themselves. Like a magician entertains himself by doing stuff in your face. It's just like, okay, now watch this. Now don't say it. Don't do it. I didn't touch anything, did I? I didn't tell you. And their entertainment is doing stuff in your face, and you don't know what it was that they did. Okay, well, that's exactly what this world's magicians do. That character in the middle is Arthur Frayne. That's his name, Arthur Frayne. And the character on the right is, I believe, that's Tutankhamun. So you can see the head in the Zardoz is only a remake, a trope on the Tutankhamun, because they're using the same kind of knowledge, right? And then also Arthur Frayne, he's set up with the same look because it's the same message. Now, when you think about the Frayne, we went through this last week, but I want to cover and keep on, because this is what we are continuing to be subject to. It's the same story, TikTok, the same story being replayed over and over again. It's a merry-go-round. Our life in this society. It's from a Latin word. Refrain is from a Latin word, refrenere, which is formed from the prefix re, go back, which means back, plus frenere, which is to hold a horse back with a bridle. It's the part of a song also, or a poem that repeats. We didn't get to finish. I think we got through the first scene of War for the Planet of the Apes, and one of the big things, like, the apes riding horses. The apes riding horses is such a big deal, but I'm gonna keep going. So the point is that it is that knowledge, that science of spirituality of the people, is what the government, quote unquote, and those to which the government answers. Is not the other way around. The government has a constituency, and the constituency are the people who put them in the seats, right? So he who pays the price, who pays the piper, calls the tune, or something like that. So in the same way, who put the governors and those legislators, etc., in the seats? Whoever put them in the seats, they're the ones that are controlling them. They are not the ones that are in control. So that's the relationship between the government and the commercial, government and the commercial world. You have to understand that. And the very fact that you have this kind of symbolism, the pyramid with the eye and the eagle, etc., you have that on the dollar bill. Is telling you who's running, who's in charge. And there's enough of you intelligent enough to know that. Let me make this. I mean, you've been exposed well enough to know that, but understand this. The statement is this: that law is interest in the form of legislation. Laws. You have law. So it's the law, right? Law is interest in the form of legislation, not interest like very bad interest like on money. No, it means what I'm interested in. Law is interest in the form of legislation. So, so laws are passed in certain people's interest, and which laws get passed, which laws, which interests come into the form of legislation. Whose interests come into the form of legislation? He who pays the piper, the constituency that put the person in the seat. They're the ones that tell them, write this law in my interest. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. And that's where we are. So when you have on the dollar bill the token of money, you have on it, this is how we rule, this is how we operate. And you can see when you see those stars, those stars right there, the configuration is the Star of David. And that's over the head of the eagle. And we can find we can point to biblical stuff, just that details this, but that's not the message today. Well, that's enough of it for now. You should understand that. And if that's not what's playing out, you ain't paying attention. It's like, and you don't have to spend a lot of time there because it is what it is. It's like just because you point it out because you see it, that's not the end of it. The point is, yes, that's the reality. Okay, now therefore how you're supposed to act. And if you overreact, or I'm going to even use this term, misreact. Yeah, you're supposed to react, but don't misreact. If you misreact, then you're not, you won't be successful in the world that you're in. So let's move on. So now here's new stuff for today. The Paris exhibition of 1895 was presented, a special Paris, I should say, Paris exhibition. It's the World Fair, right? 1895. It was presented by the Lumiere brothers, who were pioneers in photography. For the first time in history, the brothers were presenting to the public a moving picture. We still call them movies. We call them movies. Like you have first they had silent film, right? Then started what? The talkies, right? But this was even before the talkies. The idea is just movies, right? The things that move, showing pictures that move. Mind you, this is the first time, the unveiling, 1895, of the first movie. Do you know that there were some people who came from quote unquote regular civilization, went into a native or original aboriginal civilization, and then they took photos, and then when they showed these people the photos that they took, they killed those people. In this instance, they killed those people. Why did they kill them? Because they thought that they had taken their soul. They thought that the person who took the picture took their soul, because when they look at the picture, they see themselves, and so they believe that their soul was taken by them. That's how much they didn't understand about the technology. So, excuse me. All right, well, you have to have it in mind. Here's the very first time that anybody ever saw a picture move. Okay. And so this was Paris, 1895. And what it was a short film depicting, all silent, a train chugging into a train station with all the steam spewing out, and it was coming directly towards the camera. What was the audience's reaction? They screamed in utter terror. They ducked under their seats. People had never before seen pictures move. So they registered what was happening on the screen as real. It's actual, it's not an illusion. Since they nor anyone else up to that time had ever experienced this. This was a totally new experience in the three-dimensional world. I'm talking about in the concrete space of reality. First people who ever had this experience. And since they or anyone else had never experienced this, so as far as their brain's perceptual system was concerned, the images on the screen were reality and not an illusion. See, the brain doesn't know the difference between the reality. It only registers it as a reality, not as an illusion. So the brain responds to the illusion created by the film with the same circuitry that it does to life itself. So it was real. It's just like placebo, nocebo. You know, when you look at a placebo, the placebo has the effect because, for as far as the brain is concerned, this is what really happened. And in consequence of that, everything that the brain is supposed to do in the presence of that accepted reality, it acts out. It triggers all the mechanisms inside the body to bring about what it's supposed to bring about under what circumstances. So in this case, where it's fright and flight and fear, that's what the brain did, even though there was no threat in actuality to them. So even so, even on-screen emotions are contagious. So the real impact of movies. But what happened as we evolved, quote unquote, socially speaking, as we got more and more exposed to quote unquote movies, then we didn't, of course, react that way because we could make the separation between the illusion and the reality. However, the neurochemical, the neurobiological impact is still going on inside of the mental makeup. We just quote unquote control it. It's like, for example, whatever, ovens, right? Ovens. You cook food in the oven now. You're still using fire. Yeah, that fire is dangerous and that fire is fire in the final analysis, but because you have it in a controlled space, then is no outward threat to you. However, with the for as far as the brain is concerned, we don't, most of us, we don't react outwardly in the way that whatever you watch a science fiction horror flick, this and that, you don't react outwardly like that. But in that moment, a part of the entertainment inside is you sort of like controlling your reaction. But on the inside, that makeup that is not your conscious makeup is being shaped, and it's generating chemicals, brain chemicals, body chemicals, hormones, etc., as what is happening in the movie, and it is shaping and changing your brain patterns in a way based upon what's being projected. So now these here are three movies: Dark City, Vin Diesel's Bloodshot, that's more recent, and Groundhog Day. There are others. There are others you can think of. You can find them. But these particular are, I want to reinforce what I'm saying to you with these, because they all have to do with the individual not knowing that their memory is under someone else's control. Someone has hijacked their brain works, let's call it, and they are thereby controlling those individuals through it, right? So Dark City, the fundamental thesis of that is that there are aliens that are running an experiment, and the experiment is they put the people to sleep. The people go to sleep every night in one condition, might be poor, and while they're asleep, these aliens erase all of their memory about the life that they had before. Excuse me, the life that they had before, and then they put them in another life. When they wake up, they're in a totally different life. And so they're experimenting to see is basically like, is there such thing as a soul? Is there some such thing that's transcendent? It's the whole issue of nature versus nurture. What's the most important thing? That's what that is about. The names of the aliens are very interesting. I didn't memorize any of them for that, but what stays in my mind is Mr. Book. One of them is Mr. Book, and they have some other kind of generic. Each one has some other kind of generic name, which obviously is some kind of code to how they function in the movie. But you see, he's strapped to a clock, right? It's all about time. It's all about controlling time. It's about turning. And the one guy who was the quote unquote the problem for the aliens was the guy who never went to sleep. He, for some reason, he couldn't go to sleep, and and the very fact that he never went to sleep enabled him to ultimately find out what was actually going on in the world. He's confused for a time, but then of course that's what the whole plot is about: waking up to what it means to be woke, right? Bloodshot, same, well, not the same kind of thing, but technology was developed in order to plug into and control the individual's emotional responses, his mental perceptions. And so you weaponize this individual because of the fact that you control his memory, you control his mind, and he doesn't know that he's under control. And he's brought repeatedly into the same situation when he is being used to target people that the bad guy wants to kill. So he used it. It's like the Manchurian Candidate, which is a very similar theme. You know, I'm controlling your mind. You don't know I'm controlling your mind. You're acting in accordance with what I want you to do, and you don't know it. And I have you do that repeatedly. That's the case of the American people. That's another thing you need to understand. What's this Afghanistan? What's this Iraq? What's this Vietnam? What was that? Where is that from? Who? What was the cause? What was the purpose? What was the aim? What was the reason? Where's the justness of it, right? But the American people are under remote control, right? And we're going to keep going because it's Noam Chomsky speaks of it as manufactured consent, necessary illusions. Chris Hedges talks about. These are scholars that have made the case, but because of the dominance of the mass media machine, it's sort of like whispering in a tornado. But mashallah, that's what it is. So, Empire of Illusions. I think we have some more material that we're going to bring from that before we leave. And then Bill Murray's, and again, there's the clock all over again. Repeatedly going through the same thing until he comes to realize, how can I get out of this illusion? I have to free myself from the illusion by behaving in a certain way, changing my behavior in such a way, controlling my behavior in a certain way. And it's only in that way that I can free myself from this, nightmare merry-go-round. So thoughts are the language of the brain. Thoughts are the language of the brain. And feelings are the language of the body. Our thoughts and feelings create our state of being, right? go back to the Lumiere brothers and that silent film of the train coming into the station. It's like what kind of thoughts and what kind of feelings were coming into the experience of the people who are being exposed to it for the first time, right? And it is and was those thoughts and those feelings that created their state at that time. So as our thoughts are critical, who controls your thoughts? Who controls your feelings? What generates your thoughts? What generates your feelings? Think about it. We're Homo sapiens sapien. Metacognition means thinking about your thinking. And this is taqwa, brothers and sisters. Taqwa, among other things, but taqwa is being conscious, like the man in Dark City. Don't sleep. Stay awake. Be conscious. Be aware. But be conscious in the way that Allah wants you to be conscious, right? Be aware of your own thoughts. Be aware of your own feelings. Be aware of the source of your thoughts. Be aware of the source of your feelings. Because the media gives you feelings. This is what was said again in the concluding point here. Even on-screen emotions are contagious, meaning that I want you to think in a certain way. I want you to feel in a certain way. Then I give you your thoughts. I give you your feelings through my injection into you from the media. All right. So as our thoughts and feelings are established and repeated, we are continually living in the past, right? We are continually living in the past, right? Yeah, and our bodies and our brains live in the past. Yeah. What is memory? Memory is experience and what you feel from and what you think about, what you have experienced, right? So whoever controls that controls your life. So you have to bring those things into your own control. Entertainment, the term itself, entertainment. Taming is that process of putting the silver, and I believe it's mercury. No doubt there's something else now. Maybe originally it was mercury, but it's that silver that's put on the back of a glass, put on a pane of glass, right? So that it gives that mirror effect. But if you could take this stuff off the back of it, then you just have a clear plate of glass. But when you put that silver backing on it, it's called taining. That's TAINING, taining. And okay, once you have a piece of glass and that piece of glass has been tained, now you have a mirror, right? They call the movies, right? Silver screen, right? The silver screen. Mercury is also, it's a Mad Hatter. I'm thinking about a lot of things right now. The Mad Hatter in the Alice in Wonderland. You know, you and I, we've been through the Looking Glass, the White Rabbit and Matrix. Down the rabbit hole language that's being used. All that is to say that the world that you come into, the world that you come into is a world that has been created for you. Mad Hatter is because mercury used to be used for in the tanning business when hats were being made. Mercury is used, and so ultimately that mercury will drive you crazy if it's in your if it's getting through your flesh, and so that mercury that was used in order to make hats would seep into people's brain and biology before anybody, of course, knew about it, and then you become a Mad Hatter. You become a Mad Hatter. But it's from what? The taining, the mercury. All right. And people are spoken of as being mercurial. And you also find that in that movie, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them or something like that. The mercurial was the real power, and it was in this young person. So I'm not gonna, I won't go into it, but all I'm trying to do right now just tie in the mercury piece of it, right? And the tainting, right? Here's one. They have the vampire. How you know if you're a vampire? You look at the movie Van Helsing, right? Van Helsing. One of the things in the movie, he fights all the monsters, right? And one of the things is that he's trying to figure out to make sure to see if somebody is a vampire or not. Then he walked in such a way that he had to walk in front of a mirror. And when he walked in front of the mirror, if that one that was following him did not have an image, that meant that he was a vampire. So vampires, they don't have images, right? They don't. The mirror image doesn't come through for them. Why? What's the message in that? The mirror is actually a conscience. It represents conscience. It's your conscience, self-reflection. You looking at yourself and assessing yourself, right? So your conscience. So when the prophet says, just as moving past this, the prophet says the Muslim is the mirror of his brother. Then I'm supposed to be your conscience, and you're supposed to be my conscience. We are supposed to associate watawaso bil haqq, watawaso bis sabr. There's supposed to be a reflective relationship, and we're supposed to be reflective. So when you're reflective, you're reflecting, you're thinking on, you're having a conscience. Mufakiru. Those people who have a moral sense, a sense of the consequences of their behavior, right? So point is that entertainment, it means that they want to enter into your subjectivity. They want to enter into your conscience, right? And the whole idea about train, right? The train, you have the train tracks, right? The train, and you have this language entrainment, right? These massive Woodstock level music events where you have everybody beating, whatever, rocking and singing and moving in the same way, same spirit, same emotions, same motion. That's entrainment. That's a hypnotic effect that comes over everybody, and there's an entrainment that happens. And so it's woo, woo, woo. That's in just an event, right? That's in just an event. But what about a whole culture that has been brought into entrainment by the mass media that has so many millions of minds listening to the same words at the same time, feeling the same emotions? They create a unitary body out of hundreds of millions of people. And whoever controls that controls those people. Let's go back to the point. It's that so as your thoughts and feelings are established and repeated, we are continuing to live in the past. Our bodies and brains live in the past because those people who have that kind of power, they shackle you. They put you on a particular track, right? And they bring you into entrainment and they direct your paths. And the entertainment is to enter into your subjectivity, to control and contain and restrain your conscience. They give you your conscience to tell you this is good, that's bad. Their moral system. And so what they put before you on the screen is saying, like this. And then they can present something that they don't want you to like. They can present it in an ugly light and bad reports and bad imagery about that thing, or bad situations that include that thing that they don't want you to like. And in that way, they are bringing you into their entraining, the consensus trance of the culture that is facilitated by the mass media entertainment. They're entering into your conscience to control you as to how you reflect, how you think about something, how you perceive even your own behavior. Make you feel guilty about doing the thing that you know is right. Make you feel guilty about disliking the thing that you know you should dislike, because you have your own value system and said, no, that's not, a man in a dress is not beautiful. Okay. and all the rest. You take it the rest of the way, however you want to go. But see, that's what's at work. Now the sleeping people, as we mentioned in Dark City, it's like the people asleep, they don't get it at all, right? Because they are asleep and they are completely under the influence of the people who control the machine. He said, your mentality is both your emotionality, your mentality, huh, is both your emotionality and your thinking working together. How you feel and how you think, that's your mentality. Okay. Understanding this logic, meaning it's like, I want to give you your mind. Then all I have to do is control your thoughts and your feelings. And the other thing you may be surprised to know, but
90
you
seconds.
should be aware of it. We're going to go a little over today. The language, that's a big deal. You put that in bold, understand whether you get it right now or not. Get everything rolls up into language, right? And if you can get to the point where once you accept that, and you understand that people's mentality / their thoughts and their feelings are the products of their language, then the critical thing is the language that you speak, not whether it's English or Spanish or Arabic or French or what have you. No, the language is the language of your conscience, right? The language that you use to define what is real for you or not. But I want to say, I'll stay with this quote right now. Understanding this logic makes possible the corrupt use of culture. When somebody understands this, that it's your thoughts and your feelings that control you, then I create a culture that uses and promotes and projects the language and thereby the thoughts and feelings that I want people to come into the consensus trance upon, that I want to bring them into entrainment, and I do that through entertainment, then that's how I control them, keep them going where I want them to go. And they can't get off the track as long as I am the source of their mentality, right? So understanding this logic makes possible the corrupt use of culture to enter the mind, entertainment, to enter the mind through the senses, to capture the natural intuitive faculties, feelings, and fertile imagination, capture your imagination, which are the first and most indispensable tools of intellect, thinking, reason, and logic. Many of the celebrities that are in front of us, those idols that are being made by the media machine, they in their own rights, many of them are very creative. Many of them are actually geniuses. I'm talking about Balalians and otherwise. But the point is that they don't control themselves. They don't even know. They don't even understand how their excellence, their human excellence, their God-given gift is being used by someone else for a purpose that perhaps in their own heart of hearts, in their own soul, they themselves disagree with. But because they don't know how to disconnect themselves from the monster that is the machine that made them, that's why you find many of them committing suicide or living in ways that are suicidal. It's like, well, hell, if I die, then it'll all be over because I can't set myself free from this quote unquote madness, if you will. The movie Simone comes to mind right now, that Al Pacino thing. It's like no matter what was done, he couldn't break it. That Michael Hoffman, I believe was his name, that committed suicide, and so many others. So it's like they knew that, man, this is really something crazy. Once you get into it and you can't get out of it unless you are blessed in some way to find a way out, it's crazy. But let's finish this. So whatever gets hold of your emotionality automatically gets hold of your thinking. And whatever controls your thinking controls your behavior. So I'm saying the point is that we are much easier as a human being, right? We are much easier to manage and control than we think. We think is the Disney theme. It's a small world after all. It's easy. It's easy. Once you have a people who they don't know themselves and you know more about them than they know about themselves, then it's very easy for you to always stay ahead of them, and it's very easy for you to always turn them around. Imam Muhammad, very simple analogy, said once you got people into this herd mindset, then if you want them to move to the left, then just fire a shot to the right. They're going to go to the left. If you want them to move to the right, just fire a shot to the left, and they're going to go to the right, etc. It's easy to control once the masses become a herd, and that's what has happened, and that's what has been happening just basically forever where we are. Um, let's see if we can close out a little bit of this on this freedom piece here. So here are three other images, right? The Truman Show with whatever his name is, and then the one most recently, the Free Guy, right? Excuse me. It's really the same theme, but one is so-called like in our present digital world, where the other one was just regular analog slash TV. And then, of course, there's the classic, The Matrix. It's really about the same thing. You're under the control of someone who is managing your world. You don't even know the world that you're in is being managed by somebody else. And the idea is you have to get disconnected. You have to get free of it. That's the thesis of how to do it. What I want to emphasize this morning is just simply getting us to understand you have to wake up from the reality that I'm talking about. You turn on the TV, turn on the radio, you turn on whatever the social media networks. All of that is the matrix. All of that is the false world that is being managed now. As it is with the matrix, the matrix, you go in, do what you're going to do, get out. You don't buy into it as a reality. Don't sleep on it. Don't believe your eyes in that world. In that sense, recognize that all that is something that's being set up to benefit the people who are the masters of it. Now, who are the masters of this culture, the cultural masters, right? So the point is, you go about your business every day like this free guy. It's like whatever, like today, right? Today, you got stuff you got to do. You got stuff you got to do, but you go through doing what you do with an awareness that the manufactured state of matters in the world are illusions serving people who have the management and control of the society. Doesn't mean that you can't get anything done. Doesn't mean that you can't accomplish. Doesn't mean that you can't achieve. But treat all of that is not aligned with what you know that Allah intends for the human being, reveals for the human being. All of that, it's an illusion. It's an illusion that serves the powers that be. Let me see. I think I'm going to have to share it now. This, you can look this up. I've decided I'm going to see if I can pull it off. We'll give it a shot. Media brainwashing. All right. News simply repeats the same taglines and phrases over and over again. So you can look that up on you. Go to YouTube and look media brainwashing. News simply repeats the same taglines and phrases over and over. All right, so now I'm going to try to switch up and share a new screen. Hang in there with me because this will be the last act of the day. Inshallah. Let's see what happens here. So we're going to share something new here. All right. Okay. All right, let's see what happens here. This is the one I want. Okay. I'll probably have to talk over some of this.
You're traveling to another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of imagination. Your next stop, the Twilight Zone. In consumer news, economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take some of the spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take the spring out of the step of the Easter Bunny. Final days of the campaign can get a little salty.
The final days of the campaign can get a little salty.
The final days of the campaign can get a little salty.
The final days of the campaign can get a little salty. The final days of the campaign can get a little salty.
The final days of the campaign can get a little salty.
The final days of the campaign can get a little salty. The final days of the campaign can get a little salty.
The final days of the campaign can get a little salty. The final days of the campaign can get a little salty.
As you probably noticed, the final days of the campaign have been, well, you might call them just a little salty.
How often does your job call you out of bed in the middle of the night? Well, if you were a doctor, it would be often. And generally, there isn't much time to spare.
Coffee, doctor?
Oh, fine. Have a Camel with your coffee. Thanks. You know, this night work's kind of rough, isn't it? That's right. But a Camel's always a pleasure.
Yes, folks, the pleasing mildness of a Camel is just as enjoyable to a doctor as it is to you or me. In a nationwide survey, doctors in all branches of medicine were asked what were included. And according to this nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Try Camels yourself, the cigarette so many doctors enjoy. Cigarette do you smoke, doctor? Tens of thousands of doctors in all branches of medicine, in all parts of the country, were asked that question. What cigarette do you smoke, doctor? The brand named most was Camel. Yes, surveys show more doctors smoke Camel Camels than any other cigarette. Smoke Camels, the cigarette so many doctors enjoy.
If your email inbox is out of control and you've given up sorting it out, a Baltimore company thinks it has a solution for you. Could this be the end of email overload?
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 Could this be the end of email overload? Could this be the end of email overload? Could this be the end of email overload? Could this be the end of email overload?
Could this be the end of email overload?
Could this be the end of email overload? Could this be the end of email overload?
Could this be the end of your...
I think you get the point that the media, they get a script, they read a script. Now that's just looking at it from the news perspective, but the whole machine on the largest, so movies and books and commercials and products and entertainment celebrities and politicians, they all cooperate and coordinate under the influence of those who are their masters. This was just one of the most obvious and most recent examples. The girl was she was a sports person. They would follow First Take. Her name is Sage somebody, that she made some statement about vaccinations, that how she had to get vaccinated, and she called it cruel and something, that I had to get vaccinated in order to keep my job. Well, no, you didn't keep your job. The same day after that, when I didn't see her no more in that particular role. So the point is that we are under management. So to conclude, let me see, get to my last image, and I know we won't rush it. Okay, so hold on to this, and so I won't have to spend a lot of time going back too much over that territory, because the real solution, really the solution, is what I talked about, language. So I'm going to go ahead and make a note to myself and to you that we're going to start next week's with understanding. Okay, what's the response? What's the reply? What's the reaction? What's the answer? What's the critical? And I'm saying that what's the behavior no matter what goes on around you? It's like, again, like the Matrix, right? If you're in the Matrix, it's like, listen, don't worry about whatever's happening around you. You keep doing this. You keep doing this. Because if you can understand, and when you understand that the whole world that we're in right now is a managed world. It's under management. Nothing is happening by accident. Nothing is happening natural. Not in the world that has been constructed as this culture and as etc. All right, so that's fine. So you're in it, right? And now you need to know how to act as someone who is detached from the Matrix, or unhooked, or what have you, freed from it, but now you're in it. You're freed from it, but now you're in it. Okay, how are you supposed to act in order to accomplish what it is that you are capable of accomplishing? I'm saying, how do you have a good life, success, and other things and the like, and also, inshallah, free others from it, and also being able to deconstruct more of what exists. So we'll work out that in more detail, inshallah, next week. Thank you so much. Everybody have a wonderful day. Allah's peace be on you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.